So while I was looking for video topics to cover today to see what was going on in the gaming world, I came across somebody posting on Twitter that Dragon Age The Veilguard hadn't broken past this Steam top 50. So when I went and looked, turns out it has. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Dragon Age The Veilguard is one of the most anticipated games for a lot of people before the end of the year. It's coming out on Halloween, and it's starting to climb up in the rankings on Steam the closer and closer we get to release. I know, more people buying before the release. However, this inspired a different conversation, because when I went and looked, I was like, oh wait, it still hasn't cracked the Steam top 50, and I had a totally different idea of how I was going to do this video. I was going to go back and talk about maybe some of the problems and maybe some of the issues that are causing it to not do that. But yet, all of those problems and issues and all of the things that are being said online, I'm starting to wonder if those even matter to the sales. So really quickly, let's talk about some of those issues and some of those things that we've seen online, and then talk about the political discourse around the game. I'm not gonna go super heavy into it, so don't click off the video, but it is a really interesting conversation because I think we're seeing a shift in gaming at an industry level and at a player level. Now, my frame of reference for this are my buddies who are completely apolitical. They don't pay attention to politics, they don't care about politics, and they certainly don't care about the culture war around what's going on. Now, what they just don't want is stuff to be shoved in their face, and they just can't get away from it. They hate that crap. They don't want a message shoved in their face. But when I make the argument that, hey guys, but there's these other games that definitely have those messages in it, and you guys have played them, they're like, yeah, but I didn't choose that. And so it seems like player agency, as long as you are able to not choose those things in games, are things that players want. They're like, yeah, you can put any sort of modern day political messaging in a game. As long as I don't have to choose it as the player, they're like, I will still play the game and I will still buy the game. Now, for me, I don't know if I can do that particularly. I'm getting closer maybe to buying some games that I know have some of that in there, but friends of mine are saying, dude, shut up, just sack up and buy the game. It's a really good game. You'll freaking love it because we know it's right up your alley. So moving on, one of the things that we've heard is Dragon Age The Veilguard has really put a lot of people off. Now, seeing the Steam charts, I'm starting to think maybe all the harumph I say online is not necessarily something that is affecting the sales. A lot of people were saying that that first trailer definitely put people off, and I think it did, but it seems that they've course corrected from that. A lot of people are saying that it doesn't look like a Dragon Age game, especially going back to Origins or even Inquisition. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Origins and Inquisition and Dragon Age 2 look nothing alike. Go look at cutscenes, go look at gameplay. The games just look differently. They were always tweaking and working on the art direction, and to a point where there's almost never been a consistent one, right? I'm going through Dragon Age Origins right now, and I'm having an absolute blast with it because, well, it's right up my alley. It's my type of game. I freaking love games like that. And as I look to see, oh, hey, man, I'm really interested in seeing these other games. And so I'm going and watching short playthroughs and clips and trailers from the other games. And I'm like, man, that does not look like the game that I'm playing at all. In addition to that, another thing that we heard is the combat system is changing. The combat system is changing more from the tactical side to the action RPG side. It's going to be very action heavy focused. Supposedly you're going to be able to pull off spell combos and just various other combos and things like that. And it's going to leave behind, you know, its MMO style combat system for a new modernized system like what we saw in the most recent God of War games. Now, that was something that a lot of people seem to have problems with because apparently Dragon Age never had that, and that's not something that they wanted to necessarily see, and they think it was yet one more thing that departed away from Dragon Age. And honestly, as we start seeing it climb in the sales charts, I'm starting to think maybe that's not the case here. Maybe that's just a small contingent of people who are very politically minded, who any sort of politics or any sort of stuff like that in games absolutely matters to them, and that's their no-go. But I think, and I'm learning, that seems to be a smaller portion of the population. In addition to that, the one thing that BioWare does have to overcome is the fact that they had two games they released back to back, which was Mass Effect Andromeda and the other game that I can't remember because I'm bad with names. I wish I could just remember the stuff off the top of my head. I am so bad with names. But Mass Effect Andromeda and the other game, you guys know the one I'm talking. Please comment down below and let me know the game that I forgot. That would be wonderful. But BioWare is coming off of back-to-back flops. It's not, they definitely have some goodwill and good faith to make up in the gaming community, being known as the developer that can release games like KOTOR and Dragon Age and Mass Effect 2 again, right? A lot of people talk about those games as some of in the highest regard that BioWare's ever made. And people are wondering, are they even capable of doing that? We also know that a lot of people who develop those games are no longer at BioWare and haven't been at BioWare for many years. So there is definitely a question of talent in this. It's like, yeah, we might have a lot of hard-working developers, but hard work don't add up for talent. And if they don't have the talent to pull off the game, that's going to be very interesting. The other thing that we're going to see, because we're only a little more than a year, a little more or a little less than a year away from Baldur's Gate 3, this game is going to be directly compared to Baldur's Gate 3. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's an action RPG fantasy type game. Whether you're rolling the dice or you're going to do the action RPG style combat like you're doing with God of War, it doesn't matter. Dragon Age The Veilguard is going to be compared to Baldur's Gate 3. That seems to be the standard. Now, BioWare in that regard kind of had their home court taken over by another developer. This is what BioWare used to be really well known for, were games like this. And so when it comes to the Veilguard releasing, it's one of those things that a lot of people were kind of talking about this. And yet again, I thought it was going to be another negative that were going to affect sales. However, the closer we get to the launch window being Halloween, the more I'm seeing the game climb up in the Steam charts. The one thing that was really interesting to me to see here is how it's climbing in the Steam charts, with, again, a lot of the political discourse online. Now, talking to my normie friends, they tell me, they're like, I'm going to wait for a review because BioWare had 2 failure games before, and I need to see a review before I go into playing it. They don't say anything about politics. They don't say anything about the culture war. They don't even care about that stuff. Now, for me, I do care about that stuff, but you know what? My friends might just bully me into buying a game anyway. I don't know. We'll see if I cave to peer pressure or not, and maybe my friends are right in that regard. However, talking with my friends, I'm starting to realize that they don't care what's in the games. And I will say this, being that Baldur's Gate 3 and Dragon Age The Veilguard both are games where you can kind of choose your character creation and what you want to do. They're like, yeah, I don't care if it's in the character creator at all. All I care about is how I make my character and how my player experience is. So what if they put this stuff in the game? I'm kind of ambivalent to it. I'm just going to play this game, and if it's good, and that's all I care about. What I think this will do is that if we keep getting more and more games like this, where they're like, look, we can definitely put a political agenda in the game, in certain aspects of the game, but as long as the characters don't feel like it's forced on them, they will absolutely play the game, buy the game, and it will become a bestseller. If that is the case, I think that what we're going to see is we're not going to see any sort of culture war stuff die down in gaming. What we're going to see is we're going to see people definitely bitch about it online a lot more, but we're going to see normie gamers, politically normie gamers, I should say, politically normie gamers, right? Or people who are just apolitical, they don't care at all, buying these games left, right, and center, dominating the market because, well, they're not being told to think one way or the other. You know, all gamers want to do is have a fun experience. And as long as you're not forcing something on them, especially from the real world, they're not going to give a crap and they're going to keep playing. Ultimately, I think that we're seeing a turning point in the industry. We've seen a lot of games out there with overt political messages comes out, and overt pandering and overt culture war crap come out, and they have failed. Not only that, but they've failed for a plethora of different reasons, not just that. But what we are seeing is games out there that do contain a lot of the culture war stuff, going out there, getting into the population, and people go, yeah, no, it was a great game. I didn't notice anything. What are you talking about? This stuff wasn't in those games. And I'm like, really? Look at all this stuff here. And they're like, oh yeah, didn't notice any of that. I just had a fun time with the game. And what I think is we're going to start to see a lot of these companies out there, they're really going to stop caring about what's being said on Twitter one way or the other. And they're going to put whatever they want in the games, and they're probably going to go back to developing games for normie gamers, putting whatever they want to in the games politically one way or the other, and not really caring about the screeching that happens over in the different forums. Now, I think that that could be a good thing for gaming, and I think that could be a bad thing for gaming. I don't know. I think it's really interesting, though. And like I said, this is something that as I've been kind of watching it, as I've been looking at things, and then fact-checking my own side when they drop things like Dragon Age The Veilguard hasn't broken the top 50, it's one of those things that I look at it and I go, wow. Now, maybe at the time they said that Dragon Age hadn't broken the top 50. Sales charts changed quite quickly. But that being said, it's one of those things that I keep looking at what's happening out there, and it's making me go, huh, I don't really know where the gaming industry is going to go. I don't really know if we're going to get back to the glory days, as we call them, whatever arbitrary date you pick for the glory days of gaming, or if we're going to enter a new phase of glory days. This is something that I've been really closely paying attention to and really wanting to see how it all plays out. I don't know why my brain works like this, but honestly, paying attention to this stuff is almost more fun for me than playing the games. I don't know why, but it is. Maybe there's something wrong with me. There's probably something wrong with me. And people will probably comment now, yes, there is. But the one thing that I want to ask you guys, and I guess this is just a long-winded video to ask you guys this question. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that people care one way or the other about any sort of political messaging? Or is it just, as long as I have fun, I don't care? Do you think that that's what most gamers want? Do you think most gamers care about messaging in video games? Do you think most gamers are even aware of the culture war, care about the culture war? Let me know what you guys think down below, because it's something interesting that I've been paying attention to, and I'm really trying to see how it all shakes out. And as always, if you guys want to see some more of my thoughts on some things, here are some videos popping up on the screen right now. And thank you so much for tuning in to A Drink with Crazy. And as always, until next time, cheers, everybody.